All right, so on page 960 it says like this. So yesterday Moshe Rabbeinu was talking. He says, "You saw what Hashem did at Balpur," and then the third line from the top: "Ve'atem hadevekim b'Hashem Elokechem." You, who cleave to Hashem your God, Chaim kulchem hayom. You are all alive. So what does it mean? What does it mean over here to be alive? So first of all, on a ruchni level, the Mefarshim say every time we do a mitzvah, the limbs, we have limbs, and we have physical limbs correspond to ruchni limbs in the Olam HaEmes. In the world of truth, we actually have spiritual limbs, whatever that means. And I think the Chavetz Chaim talks about how when a person does an Aveira, so imagine a person in this world who's missing a limb, or the limb is malformed, how a person feels that he's embarrassed in this world at having a malformed limb or a misformed limb. So in the world to come, all the more so, that a person who has done an Aveira or not done the mitzvah they should have done with their limb, or he's done an Aveira with their limb, and the embarrassment in the world to come. But a person who Atem adveikim Hashem Elokechem Chaim kulchem hayom. Hayom refers to what the Gemara says, that the world to come is called the Liyom Shekulo Oroch. The world to come is a day which is eternal. Kulo Oroch, a day there's no end in the world to come. The idea of eternity, people have trouble relating to eternity because we are limited. All you got to do is wait in a line in the bank in Israel, then you'll know what eternity is. Then you get at least a glimpse of what eternity is. But that's only a glimpse. Eternity pales in comparison to a line in a bank. I once had the guy at the bank here, you go to the banks in Israel, or any office, ani tipo to buy. I was here already. He was watching my place. It becomes a whole diplomatic negotiation over there. Then you have to have somebody to paskin the halacha for you because, but I was here. I just went out shopping. No, you can't go shopping. You gotta stay. It's a whole. Yeah, but I was here yesterday. But I was here the day before. And well, you've been here since yesterday. Wow, that's all. In Russia, it was worse, by the way. In Russia, the word was where's Israel, right? And in Russia, the lines in Russia, they used to say, "What's 300 feet long and eats potatoes?" A line of people in Russia waiting to buy meat. So the idea of nitzchias, eternity, is something we can't relate to. Number one. Number two, Chaim Kolchem Hayom. There is a concept of the Gemara mentions people who have lost their world, their chelik in the world to come. The Roshei Tevis is the bad eggs. That's how I remember it. Bilam, Doeg, Achitophel, and Gechazi. They lose their port. The Mishnah in Sanhedrin, the Rosh Hashanah is Bilam, Doeg, bad, Achitophel, Gechazi, egg, the bad eggs. Right? They lose their portion in the world to come. So there are sources that say Lo Yidach Mimenu Nidach, that even those who've lost their portion in the world to come, they will eventually, one way or another, they'll eventually come back. Even Korach, Tzadik Katomar Yifrach, Tzadik Katomar Yifrach. The last letters of Tzadik Katomar Yifrach is Roshei Tevis Korach. That even Korach eventually is going to come up. I think a friend of mine told me that he's going to bring up the gates of the walls of Yerushalayim that sank into the earth. When they destroyed Yerushalayim, they sink into the earth down to Korach. And eventually Korach's going to come up with those walls, or the gates, whichever the case may be. Gates, walls. The Medrash says that the gates, when they wanted the walls sank in, when the Vazradon was trying to break into Yerushalayim, the walls sank down a couple of tfachim every day till he was able to enter. The connection to Korach is obviously that Korach was Lashon Hara. He's the original fighter, the original Sinas Chinam. And the cause of the destruction of Yerushalayim was the Sinas Chinam. So the walls go down to Korach. Eventually he's going to come up with those walls. So there is a concept of Lo Yidach Mimenu Nidach, that everybody eventually is going to make it back. Don't rely on that, by the way. We don't want to, don't use that. Try to get in on better merits, right? Because it could take a while till that happens. So I wouldn't rely on that. They once said to Rav Elyashiv, somebody came to Rav Elyashiv's Zatzal, they said, if you do a certain skula, I forgot what the certain skula is, you could get into Gan Eden through the back door. So Elyashiv said, listen, I've been spending my entire life trying to get into Gan Eden through the front door. So, we'll leave the back door for others. But there is, so Atem adveikim l'Hashem Elokechem, you who cleave to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in your merit, Chaim kulchem hayom, you'll all live everybody will live, even those who are theoretically cut off for eternity. But Chaim Kulchem Hayom, and the merit of Atem Advekim, those who are doing the right things. So you don't know the effects. When you do something good, we don't know what the effects are, how many other people we're affecting. Number three, there's this idea in Yiddishkeit. I'll tell you, the biggest misconception that people outside of Judaism have, people outside of Yiddishkeit, the biggest misconception is they think that the frum people, especially the more Haredi, the blackies, they think that we have made some sort of agreement with God. Well, we will exchange all of life's pleasures in this world for some sort of abstract pleasure of the spirit in the world to come. They think that we're a bunch of morbid, depressed people who walk around saying Tehillim all day. That is more or less the perception. And nothing could be further from the truth. The most upbeat, happiest people you're going to meet are frum people. And we certainly are not missing any of life's pleasures. Just ask anybody who was at a Shabbos table last week. I don't think any of life's pleasures were missing. Most people walk into a Shabbos table, you know, they can't believe how much food there. Secular people walk in, they can't believe it. I heard about a girl once. She came in, a secular girl came to a Shabbos table, her first time experiencing Shabbos. So she comes in, and they serve first they serve the fish with some dips and some challah in the dips, and they finish. The women get up to start cleaning off the rest. So she gets up, she helps clean off, reaches for her coat to leave. She said, "Thank you very much. That was really delicious." I said, "No, Melissa, you ain't seen nothing yet. You know, because you know, in college, what did you eat? You know, lots of tuna fish and apples. So all of a sudden you walk in. So frum people are not missing any pleasures. The trick is that the pleasures have to be guided upwards. That means if we do what we do, l'shem shemayim, so then ve'atem adveikim b'Hashem Elokechem, if you cleave to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the physical world, even the physical involvement that we have in this world, if we're using it as a means, and it is meant to be used as a means, then Chaim Kulchem Hayom, you could live very nicely today. Chaim Kulchem Hayom, you live very nicely, very comfortably. Frum people have nice houses, they're from nice cars, they have nice this, nice that, and as long as it's being channeled properly. I've told you, you know, each person has we have what you want and you have what you need. Everybody needs to kick back a little bit. Everybody needs to relax. A person goes to sleep at night. You could go to sleep, and if you have intent when you go to sleep, that I'm going to sleep for the next 6 hours, 7 hours, 14 hours, whatever your allotment of sleep is. But if your intent when you go to sleep is, I need to listen, I wish I could stay up. I'm just going to sleep. I have to rest my mind and my body so that I could serve Hashem tomorrow. Then you have 8 hours of serving Hashem while you're sleeping. You have 8 hours of serving Hashem. If a person says, I need to crash, I love sleep. And you get out, and all you do is stretch out and touch every part of the mattress to be Yotzei Chashir Chazonish. So then you're serving yourself. You're not serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But a person who does it with a little bit of intent of that, so that's Atem Adveikim Hashem Elokechem Chaim Kulchem Hayom. You can play tennis to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I don't mean serving in tennis. I mean serving. I don't mean, okay, my serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I mean you can serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with tennis. If that's what you need exercise. You need to get out. You need to relax. You can read a newspaper because you're serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's perfectly acceptable. Now, Aaron, while you're up, yeah. So I don't even know why you bothered sitting down. Thank you. Antarctica, please. There should be an Antarctica setting on that thing. There we go. Okay, now take a look at Pasuk Vav. This is, I mean, it's just so remarkable how timeless the Torah is. Because the Torah says like this, Ushemartem v'asisem, you shall fulfill and you shall do, Kihi chachmaschem ubinaschem le'enei ha'amim. It is your wisdom and your, how does he translate? Your wisdom and your understanding in the view of the nations. They see us. Asher yishmu and es kol hachukim ha'ela. They'll hear about all these laws. Ve'amru, they'll say, Rakam chacham v'novon agoy agadol hazeh. What a smart nation. I mean, you know, Jews have stereotypes in the world. Let's face it. There are certain stereotypes of the Jews. One of them is, what's the first one that comes to mind? What's that? Noses. Yeah, that's true. There is a stereotype, as Rav Weinbach, Jews who try to assimilate Jews try to assimilate. So Rav Weinbach once said, they always find Jews who assimilate. It doesn't matter. In the office, the Jew is always, they'll always find the Jew. You could change your name to Johnson or Williams, yet when the boss comes in one day and he starts handing out donuts, Williams is going to, these are free? Oh, there's the Jew right over there. The Jew. So right, you can't, one way or another it's going to come out. And Rav Weinbach once said that even Jews who tried to assimilate, he said, you can change your Moses, but you can't change your noses. Right? Okay, so there is that stereotype of a Jew. What's the for somebody said it, what's the stereotype? Huh? Cheap, right? Which is synonymous with what? Smart. No. Yeah. It's synonymous with money. Jews control the finances in the world, which is probably true. And Jews are money. Jews are into money, and Jews are. Then there's the cheap Jew. The cheap Jew. That's always the cheap Jew, but it goes hand in hand. It's because we're very conscious. First of all, through history, money got taken away, so Jews had a reason to be cheap or to be guarded with their money. But there is that, the Jew is always double coupon. The Jews always got a chop. Somehow there's always a chop on how to save money. So that is a stereotype. I heard about this guy dies. Says 3 friends go to the cemetery to visit him. So the first guy goes, Bill, we're gonna miss you, and he puts a $20 bill on the grave. And John goes, Bill, we're gonna miss you, puts a $20 bill on the grave. And the Jewish guy goes, Bill, we're gonna miss you, writes a $60 check, and he takes the $40 cash. So the Jews always got an angle here. There's always an angle on the money. Right? What's the other stereotype? Smart. Smart Jew. Right? Sometimes too smart. But that is a stereotype. Jews are smart. Here the Torah says it openly. Remember, gentlemen, stereotypes are a result of your life experiences. Any ethnic group that you think of, and you think of a stereotype, if I say to you, 3 guys walked into a restaurant and told him to close down and made him an offer he couldn't refuse. So you think of a certain ethnic group. There's certain people extort money from others as a group that you think of certain ethnic groups. Certain groups are big drinkers. They're constantly, so you think of your own ethnic group. Somebody got mugged. You thinking of a member of a certain ethnic group. It's because of stereotypes are a result of our, and I didn't say anything. It's whatever you're thinking in your mind just means that you guys are bigots, not me. And it means that it's because of your life, the experience with Jews. The Jews are smart. A smart Jew. The what do you call it? Was always non-Jewish mothers always encouraged their daughters to marry Jewish guys because they felt they wouldn't get beaten. The Jewish guy would get beaten, but not the girl. He won't beat you. That was always the stereotype. Here the Torah says this is very puzzling. Take a look. Number one, it says that he chochmaschem ve'im binaschem bein ha'amim. Now I want you to take a look back at Perek Yud Tes Pasuk Beis for a second. Look at Perek Yud Tes Pasuk Beis in Bamidbar. I'll tell you what page is it in a second. Page 838. Parshas Chukas. Perek Yud Tes Pasuk Beis. Page 838. Top line. 838. So the Torah says, Aaron, you gotta take it, give him a chumash. Everybody take chumashim. 838, top line. Zos chukas haTorah asher tziva asher. Aaron, while you're up, close the door over there. The rough day, having a rough day, Aaron. The Zos chukas haTorah asher tziva Hashem leimor. This is the statute. Daber el bnei Yisrael v'yichlecha para aduma tamima, and so on and so forth. Now take a look at Rashi, the very first Rashi on page 838. Zos chukas haTorah. Lefi shehasatan ve'umos of the Satan and the nations of the world, monin es Yisrael, they take the Jews to task. Lomar ma mitzvah zos. What is this mitzvah? Umat tam yesh, but what reason is there for this mitzvah? Lefichach kasav b'chuka gzeira hi milfana ein lecha reshus lahar achareh. And the Torah brings down, I forgot where else it is, where the Torah says they laugh at us for the various laws, shatnez and chazer. The goyim laugh at us. And para aduma, the red cow. Ridiculous. So then why does the Torah say over here, And look, let's read this pasuk again, pasuk Vav on page 960. 6 lines from the top. Ushmartem v'asisem ki chochmaslem beinasem leinam. That's your wisdom and your understanding in the eyes of the nations. Asher yishmun es kol hachukim eila. They hear these laws. Ve'omru rakam chocham v'novan agoya galoz. Wow, what a bunch of smart Jews. I understand. Make up your mind. They laugh at our laws, or they think that they're impressed by our laws. Which one is it? Which one is it? They laugh or they're impressed? The answer is, in the beginning they laugh, till they see the results. And they see what kind of people the Jews are. And they see what we are. That's what bothers them. They see from the outside, they're looking at, well, these laws don't make sense, but look what these people are. There are low levels of wife beating among the Jews. There are low levels of drug abuse. There are low levels of teen pregnancy, except frum girls are married. There are low levels of what do you call it? There are low levels of all the ugliness in the world. There are low levels of divorce, low levels of everything. How do you get like that? There's only one explanation. It's these laws. So you're laughing, and I know people in life who have done things where people have laughed at them, and then in the end, they say, wow, you know, your way was better. I've seen that. I've seen that happen. Where somebody is laughing at your approach or what you're doing, and it doesn't have to be, I'm not talking about in religion, I'm talking about just in general. You approach something a certain way, and then people laugh at you. There are people, guys learns a lot of Bekiyas, so everybody laughs at him. Next thing you know, 10 years later, this guy's a tremendous Baki in Shas, and everybody else is still, they're still struggling to keep up because they learned 6 blot that's man. And his way turned out to be very, very successful. I'm not saying that's what you should do, I'm just using an example. So here, they look at us. The secular in Israel know it also. They look at us, they talk about, they want to help us. You see, the secular one, they want to put into our school system, they want secular now to help the frum people, for our benefit. That's why it's called Liba, the core curriculum, which they're trying to impose on the religious schools, which they're never going to do. My son said to me on Tisha B'Av, he said, look, because they cut off now funding from the daycare centers. My son said to me, listen, they can try to hurt us, but they're never going to change us. That's not going to happen. We'll change them. They're not going to change us. But they see it. They know that what's going on over here, because in the Goya, you know that in the secular, and I got these people, when I call them secular, I mean not yet religious, because eventually they will be. But in the state schools in Israel, they did a survey. This goes back a few years ago. They did a survey. 33% of the kids in the school were carrying plastic box cutters. You know those box cutters are, those knives, those blades, the plastic knife? 33% were carrying these plastic box cutters. And of those 33%, 50% said they carried it in self-defense. And I think that was the teachers. Right? They carried it in self-defense. In a frum cheder, you know what kind of trouble the kids make in a frum cheder? I'm not benching. Uh-oh, Shlomi Schnitzel said Asher Yatz are too fast. Right? That's the kind of trouble in a frum cheder. Right? And once in a while, somebody does something really terrible. You know, he ate without a bracha. But there's no violence. They see it. They see what's going on. So I want to give you 2 examples. I once was in prison. No, Aaron. No, I was actually in prison twice. I was incarcerated twice in my life. I was actually in. When I say I was in prison, I gave a lecture once in prison, but I was incarcerated twice. I mean, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know it was somebody's car. I thought it was Hefker. What do you call it? No, I was once I got arrested for jaywalking. Where? Chicago. Skokie cop stopped us. Junior in high school. Me and 2 other guys. We were ditching class playing tennis, and we crossed to the middle of the street. Then we ran across the second half of the street. They waited for you wait for traffic to cross. So me and we ran across. The other guy waited in the middle, and there was a truck coming. So as soon as we got to the other side, a Skokie cop, they were notorious anti-Semites also. He pulls up, Skokie cop pulls up, and he says, okay, all 3 of you get in the back of the car. What was the problem? He said, he almost caused an accident. The truck had to slam on his brakes, which wasn't true. I wouldn't run that close in front of a truck. And so he said, you almost caused an accident. So we get in the back of the car. I figure he's going to give us a mussar shmooze and go home. You know, he's got better things at the time. He pulls down his code book, and he looks through the code and goes, yeah, that's a violation of a 1794. Takes his thing, goes, I got 3 male Caucasian youths between the age of 16 and 20, violation 1794, request backup. Like, what? Next thing you know, another cop car comes around behind us, and they drove us down to the Skokie lockup. They actually put us in a cell. And of course, yeah, Mike's dad wasn't home, and Ricky's dad was out of town, so I had to call my father. Hi, yeah. And me and Mike and Ricky kind of got arrested. He's like, what? He had he was reading the Wall Street Journal. It was a lot more interesting than my criminal activity. And he say, yeah, what? I say, they got us for jaywalking. So he comes down with my mother she comes in, she was like, she goes, is this going to go on his record? She thought they won't let me out. They're going to extradite me, you know. So we eventually beat it in court, but that was. And the second time was also something technical like that. But this time that I'm telling you about, which all you really should care about, Aaron, instead of my record, by the way, yeah, I also had parking tickets. I had a lot of parking tickets, because when I made a calculation, when I would go to a movie, there's never parking. You know, there's never parking. So I always found that there was a parking space in front of hydrants. There was a parking, and I what do you call it? So what I did was I made a what's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen is there will be a fire in this house. They'll have to chop my car apart to get to the hydrant, right? That's the worst that could happen. The odds of a fire in this house in the next 2 hours that haven't been a fire there for the last 50 years, we're minuscule. I wasn't worried about that. LMI, they could give me a ticket, which once in a while they did. So when I left Israel to come to Yeshiva, so my parents had to sell my car. So my mother goes, oh, by the way, we sold the car. Do you know you had 9 parking tickets in your glove compartment? I go, oh yeah. I said, what did you do with it? We paid them. Oh, Mom, why did you pay? She was worried they wouldn't let me back in the country or something. You know, I have a police record with parking tickets. So I went to a prison. They had a program here in Israel, a kiruv program in the prison. Now, this is a prison for hard, violent crime, violent criminals, murderers, armed robbers, everything, alla gute Sachen. And they ran a program. I wasn't even here yet. I was still in Kolol at the time, and it was in Hebrew. And they found that these guys would do tshuva. They become bali tshuvas in prison, and if you became bali tshuva, they would let them out for good behavior and be bali tshuvas. I said to the guy, yeah, but anybody will put on a black yarmulke just to get out of prison. He said, but they've done studies, follow-up studies. 88%. There's normally an 88% recidivism rate, which means 88% of the guys who get out of jail end up committing crimes again. The guys who became frum in jail, who became religious, they had 6%. And that was enough. Even as bad as frum people are in the country, criminals are worse. So there was actually funding for this program. So I went into this prison, and these guys, I mean, you took a look at these guys. These were not these are not guys you would want to meet in a dark alley, that I could tell you. And you know, guys like 3-day beard growth, you know, grizzled, with hard faces, with a big black yarmulke on. And I'm giving them a talk. It wasn't a very good talk either. It wasn't very successful. Towards the end of the talk, I started talking about prison life, about fighting with roommates, with cellmates, and that. And then they all got interested. So I should have done that the whole time. And so at a certain point, I was standing in the prison yard after the talk, and I'm schmoozing with one of these guys. And he's about 6'4". I'm not. And I'm just kind of schmoozing with it. At a certain point, I said to him, you know, why are you here? Why are you here? So he kind of like, I trusted the wrong people, which is, by the way, very characteristic of people in jail. They never did anything wrong. They're all innocent. It's always somebody else's fault, which is true. So I'm talking to this guy, and at a certain point, I'm in the prison yard with these are violent criminals. And at a certain point, I start looking around, and I realize there isn't a guard in sight. And I'm talking to this guy, and I'm looking around, and there isn't a guard in sight. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to picture the next day's headlines: Rabbi taken hostage in prison. And at that point, I politely excused myself, and I went back to the guy. I even saw, by the way, there was one guy I saw cleaning a table, a little old man in the lunchroom. He was the sweetest guy, looked like the candy man in shul. And he's cleaning off the tables. I said to the guy who brought me there, was running the program, I said, what's he here for? He said, well, he became a widower the do-it-yourself way. He cooked his wife. I didn't ask for any details. I'm just telling you, at least somebody in the family cooked. But it was, what do you call it? I didn't ask for any details. But you know, and what I felt was when I left, my stereotype was broken. I was affected negatively by it. Because when I tell you a murderer, what do you think of? You know, some gruesome. This guy looked like, just like Pete from the vegetable shop, and here he is cleaning off the table, sweetest old guy, he was a murderer. So it took a while to get back, like, oh, murder isn't so bad, because he could be a sweet old guy also. There was one frum guy in the group. There were actually two. There was one knitted yarmulke, a young guy, like a right-wing extremist who was imprisoned because he had expressed a certain enthusiasm for using his M16 on Arabs, and so he was put in prison. He didn't use it, but he had expressed intent. And then there was this one little old guy who looked like he stepped right out of a souvenir shop in Mea Shearim. The beard, mamish frubas could be. And so every time I quoted a Gemara, this guy kind of mouthed the words along with me. And so I went up to him, I said, why are you here? So he looked at me, he smiled, goes, in Hebrew, he goes, I forgot to pay my taxes. Right? Now, it's interesting, he forgot to pay his taxes, I know, me too. It's interesting, here he was, not one frum person of violent crime. They see that, they know that. Not one frum person. By the way, statistically, and this is, just an interesting thing that Hillary Clinton should hear, 90% of the violent criminals in America are males. Why is that? I thought they were all alike. I thought men and women are exactly alike. Hillary. Right? So what happened? Maybe she is. In women, if they commit a crime, it's usually a crime of passion, meaning they kill their husbands. But it's very rare that women don't rob banks, and women don't, it's an interesting thing. They see right there the difference that it's like we've been saying it all along. So they see this. Now, I was once in a cab. I just want to tell you one other incident. I was once in a cab. There's a woman cab driver, secular woman cab driver, a loser on all counts. And she was driving me. I had to go from Bnei Brak to Ramat Gan. And as we're driving on the streets of Bnei Brak, all of a sudden I heard like a playful yell. And there was a guy wearing like a white shirt and slacks. He didn't look very yeshivish, but he looked what they call Haredi. And him and a girl they weren't touching each other, but they were doing things that are, just associating with each other, which is considered inappropriate in the Haredi world. And so she gave a playful scream, a playful yell. And this lady, the cab driver, she goes, oh, see, so it goes on by you also. What was her issue? She's just trying to show that we're not, why? Because she knows in her heart of hearts that it doesn't go on by us. So a guy talking to a girl, and the girl gives a yell. All of a sudden, that's considered, in the secular world, if a girl would give a yell, and people would give her, what do you call it? She'd be she'd get the Tznius Award of the Year by them. By us, that's already considered crossing a line, because they see the difference. The Goyim see, that's Chochmas V'Vidasem. They're cynical at first about the mitzvahs, but then they see the effect on the people, number one. Number two, I really want to show you something now. Chochmaschem u'binaschem l'nei ha'amim. I want to give you a couple of examples. First of all, the Torah is a relatively small book. It's not a very big book. And the irony of life is this is Torah, this is the written Torah. Where's the oral Torah? Where's the oral Torah? That entire shelf, among others. Isn't that an interesting irony? This is the written, that's the oral. That's pretty ironic, because anytime you take a Gemara, and I show you this, this sure looks written to me. Not only it looks written, I've never seen as much writing on a page in my life. Small, smaller, minuscule, right? Then you got a few of those back there. That's a lot of writing for an oral Torah. So that's because the nature of the oral Torah is that it can't be put into writing, and therefore it expands like an inverse pyramid, because it starts here and goes this way. But it's one little book with an awful lot of wisdom. Now I want to tell you something. Do you know anything about hemophilia? What's that? Yeah, where the blood doesn't clot, right? And a person can bleed, but the blood doesn't clot. Does hemophilia transferred through the mother's genes or the father's genes? Mother's. What? Mother's genes, correct. What was the one in Russia? What was the family, the Tsarina, who had hemophilia? That's when that nut, what's his name, Rasputin, who had the magical cure for the Tsarina's for the child, and they were all, the royal families were all related, so they all had hemophilia. It came from her. It was all, the whole family had hemophilia. Do you know that the poskim 1,000 years ago, there's a question if a child has a bris milah, and Rachmana litzlan, a child dies from the bris, usually meaning that he probably bled, and the bleeding didn't stop, and he has a brother and the brother dies, you don't do a bris on the third one. But that's only if they are, what about if they're half brothers? So the Ramah says in Shulchan Aruch that if they're half brothers through the mother, that means the same mother, different fathers, you don't do a bris. If they're half brothers through the father, in other words, through the mother, that means a man had two different wives, then you do it. Because the hemophilia is passed through the mother. How do you like that? That's 1,000 years ago, or 800 years ago. Medical science only discovered this about 100 years ago. How did they know? How did they know? Number one. Give you another example. Sod ha'ibur, when the moon, the count of when the new moon is what's called the Sod ha'ibur, the appearance of the new moon. And we have it down precise. They've tried doing it with scientific instruments, and they still can't figure out how we've known about this all the way since back then. The Sod ha'ibur, when the moon is going to come, and the calendar that we have, which was formulated by Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, who was the grandson of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, that calculate the calendar that we have since then. He made a calendar. How did they know these things? That's Chachmaso Binaschem. Give you another example. Medical science has only recently discovered, recently meaning within the past 50 years or so, that certain eye ailments are an indication of heart trouble. And eye ailments, and they know that an eye ailment, they have only recently discovered that an eye ailment, I think it's in one of the eyes of, I don't remember what my friend the doctor told me, but one of the eyes versus the other eye is an indication of potential heart trouble. The Gemara says that the eye is attached to the heart. The Gemara says the eye has some sort of cords that attach it to the heart. How do they know? It's not dissecting. Go around. It wasn't like they were dissecting people. How do they know? And medical science has been certainly, and the ultimate, how long have we known that the earth is round? Who discovered that the earth is round? What? Say.
It's not.
It's not what?
It's not round.
It's not round. What is it? It's square. Oh, you're a flat earth society? Machlokah between who and whom?
In America, it's a big.
In America, it's a big, the flat Earth people. Yeah, okay. Yeah, but there's a machlokas. You know, it says that even Shammai compared to Hillel as if their opinion doesn't exist. So the flat Earth society, with all due respect or undue respect, the Earth is round. So people think Columbus discovered that. If you look in Maseches Avodah Zarah, Tosfos in Maseches Avodah Zarah, and Daf Mem Aleph, says that Alexander the Great, which is way back, Alexander the Great went up in the air and saw Kadur Haaretz. He saw the roundness of the earth, which means Tosos knew it, which means Yerushalmi. Tosos is before Columbus, which is Yerushalmi knew it, which Alexander the Great saw it. So how do we know? That means that we knew it. How do we do it? Long before the Christian Europe discovered that boats weren't falling off the edge of the sea. And by the way, Rashi in Maseches Brachas talks about a magnetic field in the sea. You heard of the Bermuda Triangle? Okay, so let's get something straight. First of all, they found statistically there are not more ships lost in the Bermuda Triangle than anywhere else percentage-wise. But the entire story of the Bermuda Triangle started with a squadron of planes that were flying out over, what do you call it, and they're apparently, this whole squadron, and then they went lost. And apparently what they speculate is that there's a magnetic field in the sea that affected their compasses, so they we couldn't keep track of where they were going and how much fuel they had, so they all, now, Rashi mentions that in Brachas, that there are ships that have wooden planks on the side, because with the metal they wouldn't be able to pass through because there's a magnetic field in the sea. Rashi mentions that openly. So that's chochmaschem ubinaschem b'nei avim. Now, the Chazon Ish is well known that the Chazon Ish knew all about medicine, and it's documented, and I've seen there is a diagram that's available. Now, we're going back to about the late 40s, early 50s. A man had to have brain surgery, and the doctor said he will not operate on his brain. They didn't have scans, and they didn't have any way of knowing what's going on inside the brain like they do nowadays. The doctor said he cannot do the surgery, cannot access whatever it was that he had to do. The Chazon Ish drew a diagram which apparently involved going through the ear, and the doctor did the surgery, and the surgery was successful. And the Chazon Ish drew the diagram for brain surgery. And we're not talking about a podiatrist over here removing a splinter. You know, we're talking about brain surgery. And the Chazon Ish drew a diagram, and then the story, I don't know if it's true or not, but the legend is that this doctor would never do surgery again, brain surgery, until he spoke to the Chazon Ish, until he had confirmation from the Chazon Ish. So that's what it says. The nations see that we're a bunch of smart Jews, because it all comes from Torah. It's all in Torah. You just got to know how to find. Do you know that the Vilna Gaon wrote a book on trigonometry? Are you aware of that? The Vilna Gaon wrote a book, and we still have it. He actually has a theorem in what do you called Kramer's theorem. And he actually wrote a book on trigonometry called Ayil HaMeshulash. And apparently the story is that he wrote it in the bathroom, because outside the bathroom he was always learning Torah. How do you like that? I also dumped my books in the bathroom, my what do you call it, but never looked at them. But that's why I felt they should be dumped anyway. But he wrote that. That's what he did. The Vilna Gaon wrote that in the bathroom. I could write a Sports Illustrated in the bathroom. But the Vilna Gaon wrote the Ayil HaMeshulash, he wrote it in the bathroom. That's Chochmas Ubinaschem. Okay, let's go on. Take a look at that we did 1 second. Let's see where we are here. Pasuk Zayin. Kimi goy gadol. Where are we? About 9 lines from the top. Kimi goy gadol asher lo Elokim krovim elov. Who is a great nation that has a God that's close to them? Ka Hashem Elokeinu b'chol karein lev. Like Hashem, our God, whenever we call out to Him. Now you have to understand. Sometimes people call out to Hashem. We sometimes feel that we're not answered. You daven and you didn't get answered. And by the way, there's a pithy. People say, well, I davened, I did get answered. Hashem said no. The Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara says if a person davened and saw he wasn't answered, daven again. Kaveh el Hashem, kaveh el Hashem. Pour out, daven to Hashem, hope to Hashem. Chazak ve'abeitz libecha, strengthen your heart. V'kaveh Hashem. You daven, you didn't get answered, daven again. Answered means yes, not no. If you didn't answer, you daven again. Some tefillahs are answered immediately. Some tefillahs are answered after 30 years. But daven and daven and daven some more. Here it says we call out to Hashem and He responds. Now, they ask the Chazon Ish, and this is a constant question that many people have, how do I strengthen my emunah? How do I strengthen my faith in Hashem? The most basic answer of strengthening faith, you can read all the books in the world. All the books in the world, it's wonderful. There are a lot of good books out. Living Emunah is a very nice series. These are all nice. The way you really incorporate and internalize Emunah is by davening. The more one davens, and obviously learns Torah, but davening creates that connection, serious davening, real focused davening to the degree. And by the way, don't get upset if you don't concentrate on every word. If sometimes you space out during davening, like 80% of the time. Davening is challenging. It says in Halacha, now this is written 400 years ago, nowadays we don't have kavana in davening. That's written 400 years ago. And by the way, we haven't gotten better. So don't, if in baseball, guy hits 300, he's a star. 30%, you're a star. 35%, you're a superstar. That means on my test scores in high school, I was a super duper star. I was up to 50 or 60. In baseball, I'd be a billionaire, a multi-billionaire. If you got 30%, you're davening, count the hits, don't count the misses. Count the hits during davening. But the Chazon Ish was asked, how do we strengthen our emunah? You know what the Chazon Ish said? Ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu for anything all the time, even for little things. Sometimes when I'm at a bus stop, I will actually, I'm not a flower child, guys, but I'm just telling you, sometimes I'm at a bus stop and I'll say, please Hashem, send transportation for me soon. And then, you're supposed to include yourself with all other Jews, with the tzibur. So I say, among all bus waiters in Klal Yisrael. And I don't ask for a bus. I ask for transportation because it could be a ride also. But I say the tefillah. A woman, I once read, a woman who's in the kitchen, she's cooking, she should daven that it should come out well. The cake should come out well. The, what do you call it? The kugel should come out well. For some women, you're not allowed to daven for a miracle. But assuming that she's capable, daven that it should come out well. Don't take anything for granted. The only thing I would tell you is, nobody should hear you. Shouldn't be a demonstration of our emunah. Nobody else should hear you. Please, we better somebody need a bus. Ooh, give us a bracha. No, daven to yourself. Nobody, no. A woman says a bracha with the cake to yourself. If you'd say it out loud, you drive people crazy. That's the way. That's what the Chazon Ish recommended to strengthen the emunah. One more point. Take a look at Pasuk Tes. Raki shomer lecha ushmor nafshecha meod, pen tishkach es hadvorim asher ra'u einecha. Be careful that you don't forget the things you saw. Upen yasuru bilvavcha kol yemei chayecha, that it should be removed from your heart. Ve'odatem levanecha livnei vanecha. I want to ask you guys something. Have you ever seen Niagara Falls? Have you ever been to Niagara Falls? Have you ever forgotten what it looks like? Can't forget. Aaron, did you ever forget what Niagara Falls looks like? Have you ever, what's the most amazing thing you've ever seen? What's the most amazing thing you've ever seen? No idea. What's the most amazing thing you've ever seen? Think of something you ever, what's the most remarkable, amazing thing you've ever seen? I'm trying to think, I think probably the Bulls winning in '91 was pretty amazing. That was amazing. I haven't forgotten that. Cubs winning in 2000, see, that was pretty amazing. I haven't forgotten that. But what else? You ever see a light? What do you call it? You ever been on a roller coaster? Have you forgotten what that's like? You ever been on like the supersonic dinner spinner, right? Or one of these other things that what do you call it, that you feel like you're dying, and you pay money for that feeling? Right? Have you ever done that? Have you ever parachuted? Anybody here ever parachuted?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
Have you forgotten what it's like?
It's fine.
Oh, it's fine, is it? Oh, it's fine. It's only fine because the parachute opened. Somebody once said, if at first you don't succeed, parachuting is not for you. You say, yeah, okay. The point is, Klal Yisrael, whatever you could think of, a Niagara Falls, or the Grand Canyon, or the topography in Afghanistan, anything that you've seen which you consider that was unbelievable. That was amazing. That was unbelievable. It was awesome. I mean, what Klal Yisrael saw at Har Sinai was even more amazing. They saw the letters, they saw a fire, they heard sounds. How can you possibly forget that? The Torah said, be careful that you don't forget it. How can you forget it? How can you possibly forget that you saw Har Sinai? How can you possibly forget such a thing? And even more than that, could you forget what tefillin is? How do you forget what tefillin is? How can you possibly forget what tefillin? You've been putting on tefillin, you've seen tefillin your whole life. You've seen tefillin, you've seen people putting on tefillin. One guy once came to Reb Chaim Kanievsky. He said to Reb Chaim Kanievsky, my daughter is 5 years old, and every morning, she takes a pink ribbon, and she wraps it around her arm 7 times, and she takes like a little pink flower, and she puts it on her head. What does that mean? Does that mean that she's got like is she a very high spiritual neshama? Reb Chaim said to me, it means you should start davening in a minyan. How would a 5-year-old girl ever see her father putting on tefillin? He put on tefillin in shul. Maybe he puts it in the home and then walks to shul. Chances are he's davening at home. Reb Chaim said it means you should start davening in a minyan. How can you forget something? The answer is there's only one way to forget. You push it out of your head with nonsense. And the more nonsense we put into our head, the Gemara says every piece of nonsense we push in pushes out a piece of Torah. Person fills his head with Torah, pushes out the nonsense. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says that a person is accountable for forgetting what he learns. But not if he's, you learned a tremendous amount, if you forget we're human. Like where it says, ad sheyeshev v'yisir milibo, until you sit and actively remind it from you remove it from your mind. I wondered about that. How do you remove that from your mind? How can I actively, don't think about, it's like trying to forget a number. Don't remember 96674. Don't remember 96674. Try to forget 96674. What's going to happen? All you can do is remember it. So how do you forget? How do you sit down and actively remove Torah? You actively remove Torah by actively engaging in nonsense. The Torah is saying, don't fill your head with nonsense. Don't fill your head with all the silliness and even imagery, especially imagery, can have an effect on pushing out other imagery. And so a person, Rav Shach Zatzal, I think it was Rav Shach, was once in one of the Gedolim, I don't remember what it was. He was in New York, I think. And it wasn't Rav Shach, it was one of the other Gedolim. And they were driving a lot of skyscrapers in New York. And he was sitting in the car reading Gemara, so he said, you got to see these skyscrapers. He said, no, I don't want to. They said, why not? He said, I don't want anything to amaze me. I don't want anything to see anything amazing other than Torah. I want Torah to amaze me. Because if you look at something else that's amazing, that's going to reduce the effect of how amazing Torah is. That's very, very true. The more we're involved in other amazing things, it could be movies and it could be imagery, it could be whatever it is, it pushes out Torah. The more Torah we're involved in, the more it pushes out other things. All right.